Jim and I have a acquaintance / friend from the coffee house days named Jan Luby. Jan, a singer-songwriter in her own right. And one night after I performed, Jan's like, I want to tell you this joke. I don't know why she wanted to tell me this joke. But she did, and it's my favorite joke I've ever heard. She said, the King of Norway and the King of Sweden went out hunting. And while they were hunting, a man jumped out of the woods and said, don't shoot, I'm not a deer. The King of Sweden whirled around with his shotgun and blew the man away. And the King of Norway said, what did you do that for? He said he wasn't a deer. The King of Sweden says, oh, I thought he said he was a deer. That's the joke. It has nothing to do with Sweden or Norway. It's about somebody thinking a guy said he thought he was a deer. Which, of course, why would you ever? That's my Jan Luby joke. Remains my favorite joke to this day.
Hey. Hey. Not funny.
And I think, that brings me to something I wanted to share with you, Jim. I was listening to your latest album today, and a couple of things really hit me. A couple of the songs. So Spinning, I had listened to a couple of times prior to this, especially because you had made a video that was kind of the one you were putting forward. So I had listened to it more than the rest. And today I was listening to it, and it just hit me like knowing you, I know you're not speaking to God in this song, which is, a big part of No Mistake that we were just listening to. It kind of has that component of divinity. But, the lyric, like, you wound me up, you turned me on and left me here. I was like, oh, that's me singing to God right there. you breathed life into the clay, and then you were like, it's all you, buddy.
Yeah. Good luck, Junior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're on your own. Go get him, Tiger.
And then
God or a woman, either one.
And then there was another song that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Not to say that too often, but I think it might have been called Nobody. Is there a song called Nobody? Yeah. And that so I wanted to share that with you, and I also wanted to share just an opinion that I heard you say somewhere, maybe it was on the phone with me, or maybe it was in one of your Facebook posts, that you were like, now I just have to save up money so I can go to Iceland again and do it all again. I think all that stuff is there for you at home if you want it. I mean, you can't. Nobody who goes to Iceland comes home and is like, well, that was a big waste of time. Iceland is like almost guaranteed.
What a dump.
Iceland is almost guaranteed to have some moving property to it when you experience it. But it's very clear, what your vision was for it has such a unified feel to it. And I love the atmosphere and experimentation. To me, atmosphere is highly addictive. They say that the three foundations of music are rhythm, harmony, and melody. And then the three sort of secondary aspects are like bass, atmosphere, and I think they say sound effects, but they mean things like, the delay in the Edge's guitar or whatever it is, like it's a
processing.
Yeah. So atmosphere, we can feel free to think of it as one of the building blocks of music. When you hear an orchestra, they're recorded in an orchestra hall, and they're even, if you buy like a reverb plugin, this is something that for the uninitiated is an effect like you would hear in a venue, but it's something that you can use in your computer to give things ambiance. It'll even say like hall, room, club, and these are simulated environments where music sounds different ways. Yeah,
I need one that says volcano. Well, I would do it by myself, but what was there wasn't the lava and the hot springs and all that other stuff. It was Kurt Yanala.
Yeah.
There was a chemistry that happened between the two of us that allowed me to do essentially what I've been wanting to do forever.
Has Kurt Yanala seen Somerville, Massachusetts?
Oh yeah, he used to live in Boston. He was in my band. He was a bass player. Yeah.
Yeah.
He lived in Alston. Actually, he was too cool for Somerville.
Hey, I promised Lionel in the email that I sent that I would tell a story about the origin of the name Jim's Big Ego.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
go to it.
So Jim and I were hanging out, we were touching base. Once I started driving in the city, which when Jim met me I would not do. But once I started doing it, Jim was always like, when you come visit, we can go do this, we can go do that. Because I would bring my car from the suburbs.
I didn't have a car.
And so sometimes we would finish what we were doing and we would pull into Jim's street and we would just sit there and talk for like a half hour before we were ready to say goodbye. And Jim informs me that he has decided to call his band the Feckin' Bastards. and he had it spelled FEKKIN BESTIDS. The Feckin' Bastards. Feckin' Bastards. And he looked at me like, the look a moray eel has on its face all the time, like it just told the greatest joke you ever heard. Like, huh? Did you get it? And Jim has this look on his face, and I'm like, oh dear God, I don't have the heart to tell him how terrible of an idea this is. I was like in the headlights, and so I suggested a play on his name.
Yeah.
Lionel's still recovering from that.
I was looking at the moray eel thing.
We're making moray eel faces at each other.
Note to the listeners, we are making moray eel. It's like an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants gone horribly wrong.
So maybe this episode can have three thumbnails, one of each of us, and then a fourth of a moray eel. Just when we get to the part of the podcast that mentions moray eel, like everyone has it right there.
I can do it. I can do that.
Great, super.
I don't want to get derailed.
So I said to Jim, "How about Jim's infant ego?" Like a play on his name, which is not much better than the Feckin' Bastards, but then Jim, he got real Jim, Lionel. You know how he does. He got real Jim, and he went, Jim's Big Ego. And Jim doesn't remember this. He doesn't remember it this way.
I don't. Maybe it's because I tried to put the name the Feckin' Bastards out of my head. So bad.
You woke up the next day.
So bad.
It was so bad.
Oh, God.
He was so pleased with his phonetic spelling of feckin' with the apostrophe.
Yeah.
It would have looked cool on a bass drum head. That's
maybe like in a kind of lightning bolt font.
Yeah. But not in Spin Magazine. It would have been unsuitable.
Not a Club Passim. I don't think it would have flown in Club Passim.
Yeah. So that's the story I promised you of how Jim arrived.
As punishment, I'm going to play the hit song from the time off of the Only Drowning Goldfish, which I still love. It's called "I Will Crumble."
If you want to sleep, I'll pull the shade. If you should vanish, I'm sure to fade. If you should smolder, I'll breathe in your smoke. If you should giggle, I'll smile and pretend that I made the joke. And if you should ever leave me, I will crumble. That's just the way I am. I hope you never leave me.
Yeah, Hewitt, your songs are painfully beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like, just get over yourself and release them, for crying out, for the love of humanity. For the love of I mean that seriously, actually.
When I left Massachusetts in 2004, something really horrible had happened. I was in a relationship and it ended extraordinarily badly, and it was chaotic, which was not something I was used to before or since, and I couldn't handle that chaos. I had already called my sister, who lived down here in Maryland at the time, and said, if I ever need to come down there and like cool out for a while, can I come stay with you? And she said, of course, And that horrible day when things went, so wrong with the end of that relationship, I was already halfway down here to Maryland before I called her on the phone and said, I'm coming to see you. And I've been here ever since. That was 19 years ago. And I have been a couple times in my life suicidal, and I was at that time, unfortunately. And I remember thinking, I need to repay the debt of my talent to my creator, whatever you believe that to be, before I take leave of this life. And fortunately, I haven't been in that horrible place again emotionally since that time. But I do see it as a cosmic sort of debt, and I'm constantly starting over, as many great artists are. I'm currently going through a little bit of a midlife gear crisis, where so to go from heavy subject to heavy subject. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with colon cancer, and I had to go through chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy did damage to the nerves in my hands and feet to the point where I couldn't play anymore. Not only could I not play, when I stuck my hand in my pocket, I couldn't tell you if there was a guitar pick in there or a quarter. I could feel nothing. I have a little lamp in my room that I couldn't work the switch on. I didn't know how hard to grab it, and even when I thought I was grabbing it as hard as I couldn't turn on the light. It was just horrible and
infuriating.
Yeah. And so I'm really lucky to have gotten past the cancer. I did have a minor recurrence about a year ago, but it was taken care of surgically and didn't require any systemic treatment. And I can play again. And I had, I hosted an open mic in the late 90s, and I got to the point where there was nothing more prosaic to me than the sound of an acoustic guitar. And now it's like, this acoustic, Jim and Lionel could see this. You can't see it at home, but the guitar behind me in the thumbnail is actually my partner Cassandra's guitar that she got for the guitar, and the case was like $190 altogether. And this is the guitar that I love to just bang around on. When I sing songs for her in the living room, I play this guitar, not my $2,000 Taylor that I used to lug around with me to open mics and stuff. This $100 Takamine,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and now when I play, when I strum a cowboy G chord, there's angels in there, man. There's so much joy that, and this was another thing at the end of Prince's life. He had grown disenchanted with the guitar, and I wish that everybody who can play a G chord would know that if you can play G, you're halfway to being able to play Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. You just got to get the F in there. And if you can play a G chord, you can play one more chord than the person that you were years ago who heard the guitar and promised yourself, one day I'm going to learn to play something on that. And it's special and it's wonderful and it's mysterious. The mystery came back to the guitar for me, which is what I had been craving. And it's what I would wish for everybody, of course, without them having to lose feeling in their hands to be able to regain their appreciation and their relationship.
Well, that sounds a little bit like that's a little bit like Phil Broikos' story. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but Phil Broikos I think has dealt with cancer, and we interviewed him as one of the first episodes we did. And he has this whole. Do you know anything? I mean, he has this whole program called A Day in Music, and it's basically what he's doing is he's creating 24 hours of music made up of exactly what is it like
5 minutes a song.
5 minutes a song. So it's like 180 songs or something like that. And so each album is 1 hour. I know it sounds really weird and kind of bizarre. I think some of the songs are utterly fabulous. Just really mind blowing.
So these are 180 songs by him?
They're all original.
He has a lot of collaborators. He has a lot of people working who are participating in this, but he's doing it all. And he's up to like 4 a.m. I think he's done midnight to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. He's probably working on 3 to 4 right now. And it's an interesting episode. It's one of the first episodes of our podcast in season 1. It's really, and you should listen to it. It's really fascinating.
It was tied to cancer too. It was, he basically was like, well, what do I want? I want a really long project. He was like, I want to live to be 152 years old. So I'm going to need it. I'm going to need all that time to do all this.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's really interesting, and he sent him, and it goes beyond that. But yeah, I mean, and also, I think he's also, I think a religious person. I sort of caught that, very, very spiritual, very religious, and that sort of suffuses a lot. He's got a bunch of videos on YouTube. They're worth checking out. Phil Broikos.
I will. How's his last name spelled?
Broikos.
Did you used to do stuff with him, Jim? Was he ever in one of your bands?
Yeah, he played a number of things. He sang on a number of my songs, and he also was in the Push Stars for a while at their beginning. Good friends with Chris Trapper. He's from Buffalo, New York. Rochester, New York. And yeah, I mean, he was part of the scene, more of the rock scene than the folk scene.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the open mic thing.
He's not the guy who the Push Stars headhunted from your band, is it?
That's right. No, he knew Chris from way back. No, and it was Ryan McMillan was already in the Push Stars when he played drums on one of my records. But yeah, so those are the only two members of the Push Stars that I played with.
But you know, the interesting thing is, I have a very, very good friend in Philadelphia, and he writes. You know, he's been playing since 1960, and he has written pieces that he has scored to like a string orchestra, and he has actually put out his own money to hire a string orchestra and to hire, like, these are seriously stuff. And he says, what am I going to do with this music? He said, where am I going to put it? He said, like we heard from the guy from O Positive last time. You know, 120,000 tunes are uploaded to the streaming services every day.
Yeah, but that's a defeatist attitude. I mean, the thing is, I'm on the other side of this. I just think, I think that when we receive the gift of music, for me, it feels like an obligation to somehow put it out there in some quality way. And yeah, I totally relate to the idea of it's never good enough. That is always going to be true. It's never going to be good enough. But it's good. And especially your stuff is just so fucking good.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, it's fascinating to. I'm 52 now, and I was a young wunderkind who had label attention, and I actually was signed to a record label that was owned by Jim Steinman, the famous Meatloaf songwriter and Bonnie Tyler songwriter, and wrote "It's All Coming Back to Me Now," that big Celine Dion hit. All the Grammy winners I know through Jim Steinman, and he of course passed year before last, but you know, we never put out a record, but I was honored to know him and be in his presence and get pitched to labels by him. And I lost my train of thought. I was born into a world where people who are really good at music were, you know, rewarded massively, you know, out of scale from, I actually don't think anybody is ever rewarded out of scale with what they provide, because you can't, an individual can't decide what that value is. Like, I'm always like, F the NFL, they paid less taxes than I did, you know, but they're an American institution, you know, and some people, you know, their whole family is like tied up in that. So who am I to say that that's like, you know, not a thing? But anyway, you know, it was a world of rock stars and artists, and even, you know, the thing I say about the 80s is that part of the reason it was so great was because we had this thing called MTV, which was amazing. Part of the reason it was great was because we'd had a few decades to learn to use the recording studio as an instrument. And it took a while to do that. Obviously, those first guys, you know, Buddy Holly had and if you watch the movie of his life story starring Gary Busey, they recorded a song that he played live at a roller rink, and they put that out. You know, and he was like, I was going to do all this stuff to that. You know? Right. And they were like, no, it's too late. It's out there.
Perfect. It's perfect.
And so we learned to use the recording studio as an instrument. What I fear, and so you had bands like A Flock of Seagulls. I love A Flock of Seagulls. And And if you look back at the 80s, you know, they're memorable because they had this, you know, one of the guys had this Wolverine-like hairstyle. But musically, they wouldn't be considered anywhere near the same class as giants like Michael Jackson, Prince, Def Leppard. David Bowie wouldn't be a top tier artist of the 80s. David Bowie wouldn't have been considered in like Michael Jackson, Madonna, or Prince's league, you know. And you had people, you know, like Tina Turner making amazing music during that decade. And so if you put those artists into these strata of how successful they were, the people in the lower strata were still swinging for the same fences as the people in the upper strata. And I think that was ultimately good for commercial music, that people who didn't have marquee value still knew that they could if the right kind of confluence of events happened. And so they were more prepared for it. Now I think we're on the far side of a thing where nobody's been swinging.
I think you mentioned MTV. Yeah. I think it's interesting that you mentioned MTV because I think MTV reshuffled the deck, much in the same way that the advent of the talkies reshuffled the deck in Hollywood, because you had all these silent stars who were shown the door because they didn't have very good voices or whatever. They just didn't work. And then you had a whole bunch of new people who all of a sudden became stars. And I think with MTV, what was really interesting about MTV is that, it might be a great tune, but can you make a great video? Can you make a compelling video? So it helped reshuffle the deck. And the 80s happened, and so it's interesting to see when a new technology comes along and creates this ability for all this weird talent to bubble up, like Devo.
Yeah.
I mean, would Devo have gotten any traction in 1970?
Or they might be giants. I mean, they, some very strange music out of New England but there was a visual element, right? They were very conscious of that. And I think all these
good videos. They made good videos, and that helped a lot, and stuff like that. So I think it was an interesting time. Anyway, go ahead.
But also, I want to interrupt a little bit, Hewitt. And you were in the middle of a thought, and I want to get back to it. But
just keep pushing them off to the side.
I'm just gonna. What I'm hearing more in your post Boston, let's call it Boston Open Mic series of releases. You're really moving much more towards David Bowie, at least in terms of, like, I feel like the soundscape really touches on what he does. And now I don't want to ask you a question because you're going to finish a thought. Then I'll come back.
Okay. Well, I did want to address something that Lionel said too. It did reshuffle the deck, and it's really funny to watch early videos from MTV where, like, there's one Joan Jett one where she obviously is like dressed in leather from head to toe, and her band looks like they all just left their day jobs, like to film the video, and then they had to go back to work. Like they just are not ready. And
oil stains on the pants.
That standard of presentation hadn't been fully established yet. So that's kind of hilarious to look back and see that. And there's a few things. I think there's a Billy Squier video where I watch and I'm like, did the band know they were going to be in this? Like, they don't look ready. But
we could only afford one stylist.
But MTV, not only did it reshuffle the deck, but I think that something happened that was extremely damaging to popular music. And that is, Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue was the #1 video on MTV for 6 months. A single on the radio used to have like a like a really long in the tooth one used to have a lifespan of about 3 months. And artists made an album every year, hoped to have 2 or 3 singles off of that album. And when MTV came along, it slowed everything down because the life cycle of a successful single on MTV was so much longer than on the radio.
Wow. Interesting.
Why is that?
So I'm not sure. It could be because, they were having a call-in show to determine what was number one, and so it could have been the stubbornness of the populace.
Yeah, it's the stuff that I know. It's it's people like us do things like this. It's the tribal aspect of it.
Yeah,
we like this song. We still like this song.
Right.
Yeah,
and So really, MTV may have revealed an actual human appetite that the rest of the record business had glossed over up to that point for a little more static, by which I mean not audio white noise, but not moving static.
Right. Yeah. A move away from the
stationary life cycle of music. And when that was revealed, was when you started to see artists not put out an album every year anymore. And I mean, I'm sure the three of us would agree that when the music business was like that, and you had a new album from Kiss every year, and from Prince every year, and from The Cure every year, that it lessened the risk, like with movie stars who already are filming their next movie before their previous one can bomb. It lessened the risk of them totally derailing their career and going away. And also, if you want to sell out arenas, a venue like the Worcester Centrum or certainly Madison Square Garden, you're not going to do it on the strength of one hit song. You have to have a track record and a relationship with your fan base, and so at the time that MTV came along, we were in this kind of golden age of artists get in there, make those albums, get out there and tour, and so if you didn't like the new Rolling Stones album, you might like the next one, but
the
or
it might grow on you.
Yeah, or it'll grow on you. Yes, but
which just I linger on that a little bit. I mean, there are plenty of albums. The first few times I listened to it, I didn't like at all.
Yeah,
and if that was a single on MTV, it would bomb. But if you listen to, I don't know, even something by like ABBA, it doesn't suddenly become canon for you. It's only when you kind of put it on the record player a bunch of times that you're like, oh my God, this is a fantastic song. I mean, the better songs, I think, take a little while.
Certainly songs that have like an enduring quality. Sting talks about wanting to be surprised by music.
Yeah.
And I certainly want to be surprised by music. I want it to bend certain rules while adhering strictly to others so that there's some structure for the surprise that I'm going to experience. And Every Breath You Take is a great example of a song that, that got played so much that after a while I stopped hearing it. And then you catch yourself one day absentmindedly hearing it anew, and it hits you from a place that, you're, and we all have said this, I forgot how great this was.
And the B-side for the single was Mother by Andy Summers. Yeah. I love that song.
Oh my God, I hate that song. Lionel, who are you with?
That's a great song.
The subject of Mother by
the telephone is ringing. Is that my mother on the phone? Yeah.
It's just so a big blemish.
That's the sign of a band that has way too much latitude with the record companies that
No, I don't know.
have way too much money.
I don't agree.
Team Lionel Hewitt.
But to my point, though, I mean, long time ago, when Napster was happening, when the Napster Armageddon was in full blast, Jim Infantino came to me and we were talking about the recording industry, and Jim Infantino said, "I just think the idea of charging people for recorded performances was just a stupid idea to begin with, and it's going to go away." And I laughed my ass off at Jim's innocence and stupidity. And now I'm completely converted. And you can't do it. You can't, unless you're willing to sling it at Spotify and hope to God you get a couple of shekels. But honestly, this whole idea of making a mint off of recorded musical performances only existed since what, 1920s? I mean, nobody's really making much money off of recorded performances until probably, serious money was probably the 50s. I'm guessing maybe the 40s. So it's an incredibly short duration phenomenon. I mean, yeah, of course, some people are making tons of money off of recorded performances, but it's a whole thing. It's the web pages and the Twitter feeds. it's a coordinated assault on Iwo Jima. But the idea, I don't know, but I'm speaking as somebody who, unlike both of you gentlemen, is not a performing artist. So what the hell do I know? But to me, it just seems like this whole idea of expecting that you're going to make a living off of selling recorded performances, that's dead.
It is dead. And, one of the songs on that CD I sent you guys is an incredibly simple ditty. Another one used by Christian Finnegan in one of his things. Everything is as it should be.
Yes.
Is that the same one I already mentioned him using? Maybe. No, he used another one called Howl. Anyway.
No, yeah, you're right. That was
Everything is as it should be. There's a song called Howl. I might not have sent it to you guys, or I might have.
That's like the rocker, the Howl.
Yeah.
Howl's the rocker is like the steady rocker tune. Yeah.
Yeah.
You sent it to us.
Yeah. And that's I didn't mean to bring that up. It's just a different one that he used for a different special. But everything is as it should be is a philosophy which basically says when you get right down to it, everybody made their choices and this is what we got. You can't argue with that. You can just say maybe in the future we should make different choices. But,
right.
But so there's a part of me that it's not that I want to see things go back to the way they were, and it's not that I think that artists should have this outsized reward for whatever it is that they provide. I do wish that consumers viewed listening to music as a democracy and that they basically said, like, there's a dude that I love. His name is Matt Pond. I don't know if you're familiar with him or his band, Matt Pond PA, but,
no.
When I loved him so much that when I realized that he wasn't really making any money off of my love for him, I went to his website to see if there was something that I could buy to support him. He had one T-shirt that was a hideous design that I wouldn't be caught dead in, no matter how much I loved him.
And you bought 10 of them.
And that was my one chance to. So I think that as artists, we need to provide avenues for people to patronize us if they want to. Is that the right word use of patronize?
Well, no. I was thinking about this a couple of days ago.
Patronize.
It fascinates me. There's everything on YouTube. Ring the bell, subscribe. Like, how about a fucking button that says give this guy $1?
Well, there's
Patreon. There's Patreon. But why isn't it on YouTube? Why isn't there a button on YouTube that says?
Because Google doesn't own Patreon. I mean, and it's run by musicians. It's run by Pomplamoose, the band.
No, but why can't YouTube put that button on their website?
Right. Donate to the artist. But I don't think people really understand. I don't think that they understand that they wanted it all for free and they've got it all for free. And then there are these amazing artists that are like, Why should I release any of it?
It would cost YouTube nothing to put a button on the website that says, give $1 to this person. There's a reason why it's not done. I don't know what the reason is, but I find that a fascinating question because that's exactly what you're saying, Hewitt. You watch something and you're like, I don't want to ring a bell and I don't want to like, I don't want to do any of that horse shit. I just want to, I think this was a great video. I want to give you $5. How do I do that? I mean,
there actually are some mechanisms on YouTube.
You can subscribe and stuff like that, but where's the button that says I want to give $1? Why is it so hard? Everybody else seems to have figured it out.
The feature is in it's kind of in live chats. So if somebody is a streamer, there's a few people that I follow that do like gear demos and stuff like that. And there's a dude named Philip McKnight who he has a channel called Know Your Gear. And he was, in addition to being a player, he owned a music store. So he can give you like stories of like times that, you know, somebody got an amazing deal or whatever. And all this things that a normal consumer of musical instruments wouldn't know about that retail business. And so he attracts tons of attention, and he knows that like there's like a handful of factories in China that make all the Chinese guitars. And so you may have 10 different brands getting made in the same factory, and he knows what those brands are, which factories they are. And so he can say, you know, the same workers are working on this brand as that brand. And he's very knowledgeable, and it's awesome to hear somebody talk about that kind of stuff. But he, like, as you're watching, he's got so many people watching that he can't really monitor the chat.
Right.
So if you want to get his attention, you can make a donation and you can have your question basically bumped up. So YouTube wants to reward engagement. They don't want to reward people for creating something that you liked. They want to reward people for making a contribution to the discussion, to the platform, whatever. But there are YouTubers now who can have a subscription that they can sell where you get to participate in private chats that aren't open to every subscriber that they have. You're a paid subscriber, and so they do a special broadcast just for you.
Right. I've seen that.
One of the things that I love is that as someone who pays to have YouTube ad free, all of the creators whose content I consume are rewarded based on my subscription, and it's not ad driven. So this is at least what YouTube claims, that when you pay them to get rid of the ads, they're still rewarding the creators that you watch. Yeah. And that I like that much better than feeling like I have to click on this ad in order for the person who made the video I like to get any kind of compensation for it. So, yeah.
I am torn between just having this interesting conversation and wanting to play as many clips as possible so that people get a chance to hear some of your music. Is it okay if I play another clip?
It's okay with me, Lionel. Is it okay with you?
All right.
So if it's a good one, I don't want one of his sucky songs. Okay.
Jesus.
I want only good tunes.
All right. Well, I didn't make a clip of The Thief or Leaning on You.
Oh, forget it. That's it. Episode over.
I'm going to include them in post-production.
No, I'm just joking. Go ahead. Play whatever you like. Hold a second. But I have a question first. Hold a second.
Okay. It's not going to happen. Fine. Whatever.
Just give me 2 freaking seconds.
Whatever. Do it.
It's just 2 seconds. In in your Dropbox folder, Hewitt, that you shared with us, there's the folder for The Last Drowning Goldfish. Then you have a bunch of loose tunes. Okay?
Yeah.
And the title of the loose tunes, there's a parenthesis and another word after it. And it seems like the word in the parenthesis has absolutely nothing to do with the title of the thing. Like one of them is noetic.
Oh,
okay?
I'm so sorry about that. I meant to include a note to you guys. So these are the stuff that I sent you guys is effectively unreleased music. And so like if Jim gets in touch with me and says, do you have a recording of what were we just talking about? No Mistake. I say, Jim, I have a folder on my computer full of mixes of No Mistake that my partner and I sent back and forth to each other for notes, and I don't know which one of them actually ended up on MySpace back in 2008. I don't know how long we continued working on it. So parentheses, the system was alphabetical. So if the word noetic appeared in parentheses after, it was really mix N, where we started from mix A. And so it's been through all those iterations. Yeah, Lionel's making a face of shock and awe for our listeners.
Well, interesting. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Jim. Sorry, I just want to get that out of the way. That's all. Was that so hard?
I've got 2 from later releases and 1 from Only Drowning Goldfish. I'm going to play the one from Only Drowning Goldfish, but I do want to get to Howl or Until the Sun Explodes. This one, however, is timeless and perfect, and it's called Evelyn.
I put her face on a wanted poster, so I'd have something to remember her by. But I know it's no use, she'll always be on the loose, 'cause she knows all the best places to hide. She's got herself a brand new boyfriend, and he's a nice enough sort of guy. When they reach their end, then he and I can be friends. That is, of course, if he survives. And we'll sing We Don't Wanna Save the Planet, if it's the planet where Evelyn lives. Oh no, we don't wanna save the planet, if it's the planet where Evelyn lives.
It's a great beer drinking song. Like everybody around the bar has their mugs.
It's lighters in the air. You know, I just picture a giant room with the lights out and everybody's got their lighter up. Of course, it would be a phone now. I'm just going to go into another one. Hold on, before we start talking about something else. Now, I just noticed the difference. Like this is where I feel like you moved into David Bowie, and we can talk about that. This is Howl.
I am inside you, I am the core, I am the feeling you can't ignore. And when the madness in you is tame, be still and listen, hear my name.
Anyway, you can only hear them.
Tune?
Third tune is Until the Sun Explodes.
Come on.
And right now you can only hear these. These are, I don't even know what mix this is. I love all these mixes though. They sound great.
Thanks.
Until the Sun Explodes.
You say nothing can make you want me.
Yeah.
But then you linger about this place and haunt me. I pull you closer, you stiffen up like death. I bring you
not only heard it here first, you only ever heard it here.
No, I remember that tune. That was a great tune.
Thank you so much.
That's a great tune.
Christian Finnegan, I have taped 2 episodes of podcasts that he has hosted. And there's a Hewitt Huntwork curse. When you're involved in anything with Hewitt Huntwork that goes out on the internet, it's going to disappear.
Well, you're safe with us because this is a self-disappearing podcast.
That's right.
Long before you arrive, pal. I tell you,
we are made to disappear.
You are in good company. You are with the pros.
Well, Christian, on the first podcast that I was on with him, his podcast was called Audio Spackle. And he would give each guest a
feckin' bastards.
he would give each guest like an idea for a playlist, and so each guest would put together their little playlist. I remember mine was songs that like get you moving or make you inspired or whatever, and when I was on that, he described me at that time as he called me the Howard Hughes of music. and I think, there's something to that. I actually kind of enjoy that. At the same time, I do want to share my music, and I really want to touch people, and I want to create something that nobody else could have, and I consider it a work in progress. Hearing kind words from you guys does mean a lot to me, and I have a whole plan for I've been studying people who work very quickly in music. They tend to do a lot of sampling, and they don't start with a song. They start with a empty Ableton live session or what, so while I don't want to start with nothing, I want to start with these compositions. I have been schooling myself in how to work really quickly, and the other thing is that I think if you're going to work by yourself, which I've been doing for decades, you have to learn to collaborate with yourself, and you have to learn to collaborate with technology. And I think that with Jim's new album, that's what you hear that you weren't getting with more traditional approaches, his Coffee House days and Jim's Big Ego. And that's why, it's great that you're able to work with Kurt. That's his name, Kurt. And Kurt. At the same time, there's a lot of technology available to us. I tell my father, who's 84, that on my computer, I don't just have Abbey Road in the computer. I have Abbey Road on every track of every song. I have a million, compressors and choices and reverbs and sound effects and all these beautiful, wonderful things. And so learning how to use them quickly and effectively is something that I've continued to pursue, and I have a guiding principle for what I'm working on, which is, close to what I described to you guys of wanting it to seem mysterious, even to me. But I want the recordings to be worthy of the songs, and with the songs, I was swinging for the fences, and we talked a little bit about how the music business has changed. And I think one of the things that has gone wrong is that, if you became an artist in the last 20 years, you don't even necessarily, you don't have peers who have that same level of aspiration artistically. They may commercially. I mean, it's very in vogue to wear your commercial aspirations on your sleeve. But there's not a Paul Simon of your generation if you started in the last 20 years, and there's you look at someone like Taylor Swift, who's currently the biggest star in the world, and she's inspiring a lot of people, especially young women, to pick up the guitar as an instrument. It's gonna be a little longer before that bears fruit, and we start hearing a new generation of singer-songwriters that are cut from that mold. But even Taylor Swift is someone that I would lump into that she suffers by not having contemporaries who are striving to dethrone her. Michael Jackson, he had people nipping at his heels, and there was a real sense, there wasn't just one big music star in the world of Taylor's caliber.
Yeah, it seems kind of lopsided right now. It's really interesting. Like Taylor Swift is a megastar beyond all reckoning, and then there's everybody else.
So it's like you go to the ice cream store that used to have 51 flavors and there's one. Is what it feels like to me now. And if it's not your flavor, and honestly, even like, I've said this before on this podcast, but even my daughters they're upset because all their friends like Taylor Swift and they don't.
Right.
So I play them some Elvis Costello and they're like, yeah, that's a better song.
Well, there's somebody actually, my daughter plays me a whole bunch of stuff and I totally infuriate her by doing. I'm a really good 60-year-old dad. I tell you,
when I was a kid,
no, I don't. I'm much worse than that. Okay. She plays me something. She's really into. I'm like, oh, that's the Cocteau Twins. They were definitely listening to Treasure. Let me play. Let me play Treasure by the Cocteau Twins. And she's like, shut up. I don't want to know if this has been done. Oh yeah, it's totally Cure. Have you ever heard the Cure? My God, that's that's a baritone guitar. That's the bass. That's and she hates that. But she played me Lana Del Rey. And Lana Del Rey's onto something.
Okay.
I suggest she has a lot of albums and they are high calorie. They are incredibly high calorie albums. Like you listen to her tunes and she is loaded for bear. And they are these incredibly emotional, drenched with reverb. And she's singing about really, really raw stuff. All the time. I think she's fabulous. I really do. I mean, she sort of blew, and she also played me The Weeknd. I sort of like The Weeknd stuff, and she played me Tame Impala, who I thought was kind of cool. And we've listened to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and a bunch of other stuff, which is kind of cool. Lana Del Rey's in a different category. So I highly recommend that. But yeah, going to your point, Hewitt, it's like the ecosystem is different. I think personally, I think the as was it Boswell said, the perfect marriage is a blind man to a deaf woman, or vice versa. I think I would love to have the ability. I think what was interesting about the thing that Jim did in Iceland, I think that duo is so important. Like somebody who's coming at it from the angle of the singer-song, people who are coming from two completely different angles, but you need somebody who's got the Ableton down, somebody who's got the recording technologies down, or who feels comfortable with those technologies. Do we lose Hewitt? His video disappeared.
Nope, I'm here. It did.
No, it's
Can
just
you hear me?
low bandwidth, but it's all uploading.
You're still there, audio. Yeah, we can hear you. So I think it's really good to have somebody, but I think it's also great to have, I think I would really love to find somebody to do a duo with, like to work in a studio and work that way. Cause I think that's where it gets, but what do I know? I've never performed live. I've never released a record. So I'm just talking out my ass.
I had two thoughts also. What you were saying about the peers of Taylor Swift, or the next generation of Swifties. I think what was wonderful about the open mics was you can do all kinds of things in the studio, and even back then everybody had 4-track. But it really comes down to when you get on stage and you have your guitar and you're standing up there naked and you're telling everybody who you are. There's something that you can't replicate that with anything else. And when you got two songs, it was a Dan Byrne song. It's like, I just got one song, and then I die. That's what it feels like when you get up on stage. And I still think that's really valuable. And those open mics are still around. I think the people who run them are saints. You ran one. It's an insane thing to do. My seminal, open mic person was Dave Van Ronk, who ran the one at the Speakeasy in New York. I think those are really important. And I also think in terms of like releasing what you got, like it's sometimes I just think of that one-liner, the sort of a dating advice that people give is sometimes you're not looking for Mr. Right. You're just looking for Mr. Right now. And you can't predict, what's going to happen. It's the song that I thought was the most throwaway of mine was the Ballad of Barry Allen, and it's the most popular song. And I get YouTube comments coming at me saying like, this was my whole childhood, dude. Ugh. Like I thought it was a dumb song, and I played it for Autumn Pincus, and she was like, this is really good. I'm like, I don't think it's very good. I think it's it's schlock, So that's the thing. The artist doesn't know. So in a sense, the artist just has to like kind of spew stuff out.
Yeah, it's true.
And then release it. Let it the fuck go like an idiot. And then try not to think about it because it's so painful when people hate shit. But Brian Eno said, then it sits in the record bin next to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and people say, "Oh, what a lump of shit!" And it really does hurt when people say that.
It's funny, something that you said reminded me. People talking about loving the Ballad of Barry Allen. That. Artistic brilliance is totally relative. It's relative to the perspective and experiences of the person consuming the art. So if you do something that seems brilliant to someone, it means that they had brilliant. It means that they had the right set of experiences and perspective to consider that brilliant. Unless we're talking about E equals MC squared, in which case that's brilliant whether you get it or not.
Exactly.
But in terms of art, there's what you bring to it. And when we talk about music, we're talking about ourselves as much as we are talking about it. When we talk about any art, we're saying, implicit in any statement of I like this or I like that is the sentience that I am, the collection of experiences and thoughts and feelings that I am was in a place to resonate with this in this moment, because we've all had things that we didn't get when we first heard them. And then later we're in a position to appreciate them. So that's the implicit undertone of, I like this or I like that, means that the stars of my history and my present lined up to allow me to like that.
Sure. Yeah, it's like the saying in Buddhism, no one can calculate karma. No one can calculate their own karma or the karma of someone else. It is all of the cause and effect in the universe leads up to this thing. So all you can do is, the thing that you do, right? With as much honesty and genuineness as possible. But then, anyway, in my feeling, you go through the painful process of mixing and mastering, and you just have to let it go, because you can second guess that thing for the rest of your life.
I do. I know, and I feel you. And there is one song that I included for you guys that I felt was the lone success of all my attempts, and that was a song called "The Shame of Diamonds." And that song, it has a quality that I, as a listener, like to inhabit the space that it represents, and you know, some music listeners, myself included, like to listen to certain songs on repeat and just dwell in an emotion for an extended period of time. Some listeners are like, "Why would you do that?" But I'm one of the former camp, and for me, that song achieves an atmosphere and a feeling that I wanted to achieve. And when I can do that, 50 times, I will share it 50 times.
Nice. Yeah. Hewitt, we should.
Yeah.
I think we've been talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's
time. This is the longest podcast we've done, which is and well deserved. Well deserved. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this with us.
It's my pleasure. And I would, Lionel is an institution in gym world. Jim,
for the mentally unstable, like an institution.
I don't know how long I knew Jim before the first time he said, "My friend Lionel," but I guarantee you it was within a couple hours of meeting him.
Yeah, second cup of coffee, probably. Sorry, you have to find that out, Lionel. You find that out now. After all this time, I'd talk about you.
So I'm so happy to have gotten to chat with you guys, and I would love to anytime again.
It's beautiful.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Funny Not Funny is produced by Jim Infantino at Slab Media in Boston. Lionel Casson is the co-host. Our website is funnynotfunny.bigego.com. The background music you're listening to is the song Hum from Utopia Revisited by Jim Infantino. The opinions presented by the co-hosts are ridiculous and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Our intended audience is literally nobody. If you're listening to this podcast, you should stop immediately and seek help. Please do not subscribe or leave a rating or review. It only encourages us to make more. Thanks for listening.